Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we're looking at something a little unusual. This is an indie figure, and I know, the rule I made for myself is that I generally don't review indie figures. However, I've done some thinking about that rule, and I don't think people are actually going to have a problem with me doing it. One, I've already earned the trust of you guys. I think it's clear now that I'm as unbiased as I can be, and I'm not going to try to sabotage somebody just for my future project to be more successful. That doesn't make sense. Plus, I think it's going to be obvious when I review these things that I'm being completely fair. If something's good, I'm going to say it's good. If it's bad, I'm going to say it's bad. And if anything, it's going to be detrimental to my future line by talking about how good other things are. So if something tickles my fancy, such as this, I'm going to review it. And if anybody has a problem with me reviewing indie lines while developing my own, well, that's theirs and not my problem. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the FuRay planet WENG the Blade Master, or Blade Master WENG, if you want to call him that. Very cool looking figure. This whole line seems to have sparked some interest in people. And I have to say, this one is the one that stood out to me the most as a very cool figure that I would like to have in my collection, so that's why I'm going to review it. So let's go ahead and get this guy off the stand and take a closer look. Alright, before we get into the figure, let's take a look at my package. I have to say I really like their packaging. Subdued colors other than the bright red. Great call. I like that. The artwork is very nice, very stylized, looks very good. I love the packaging. The window is very nice. Artwork on the top, you get the FuRay Planet logo. More artwork on the side. I like that. Reminiscent of Storm and figure arts, kind of, with a little bit of flair, a little bit of panache. Some artwork at the top, some photos at the bottom. And then on this side, more window. Not the best idea to have these here. Looks nice, but potentially problematic. For inbox collectors, there's some information at the bottom. So good packaging. I like it. Much bigger than I thought it was going to be, too. She didn't say that. Okay, so let's take a look at this guy. Let's go ahead and take that off. And I think for now, we'll leave him as is. Okay? All right, he's a little bit taller, so I have to adjust things. Okay. With his legs bent like that, which is how you would have him bent because he is digitigrade, which is a good call, I think. He stands to the top of his head about 8 1/4, including the ponytail thing, the top knot, whatever you want to call that, about 8 3/4. That's going to make him roughly, let's say 21 and then 22.5 centimeters. Here he is up against the Marvel Legends Darwin, significantly bigger, lots bigger, okay? But I think appropriate, like scale-wise, I wouldn't mind that because he is a beastie human guy thing, and so you could easily make that scale appropriate if you wanted to. It'd probably be easier with a 7-inch figure, but it'll work. Alright, before we get into anything else, let's do a question of the day. How do you feel about me reviewing indie brands? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? Do you think there will be too much bias? Do you think I'll be trying to sabotage people? What do you think? Okay, and then secondly, I just want to put this out there. It's not a question, I'm just not that into most indie brands. Not because they're indie brands, it's going to take a lot for me to get interested in a new character, so it has to be really good. A really good looking figure. Like this, for instance. Somebody's gonna bring up Valorverse. For sure, I know you guys will, the Action Force stuff. I'm not into G.I. Joe at all. Like, not even a little bit. The tiniest little bit, maybe. So that's not really something that's in my personal wheelhouse. If he asked me to review his figures, I would, but it's not something I'm gonna go buy for my collection just because I'm not into that. Make sense? Okay, good. So, this guy. Let's start with the aesthetic like we always do. It is gorgeous. I love it. Review over. Now let me take off his cloak so that we can actually look at the figure a little bit easier for the rest of this. Okay, and it's gonna look weird, so we're gonna throw this on there, and this is gonna be part of the review because it's an accessory that I have to include in the review. I always have trouble getting the head back on. There we go. Okay, so here he is without his cloak, and I have to say I do love the cloaked look. We'll talk about that real quick. They did a really good job with it. It looks like it's a leather material with some fuzzy ends, and then the top has shading throughout. Looks really nice. And the whole thing is faded too to look worn at the bottom. I love it. There's a peg hole back here. We'll get to that later. Rope is sculpted very nicely right here, and then it has this collar at the top with the red on the inside and some shading. it looks wonderful. I love that. It obviously is going to get in the way of some posing. That's why we took it off, but it does look really nice. Now, the first thing I have to complain about, I wasn't going to start with this, but I had to since I took the cloak off. This fur piece, I like the idea of it, and it's fine. In theory, it's just the paint is wrong. It's too bright. It matches like this color down here, which is fine to be separate because it doesn't flow with the body, but this is supposed to be basically the same as this. And it's just not the right orange, so it looks weird. It's unfortunate, because I like that look a whole bunch, but I'll probably leave the cloak on him anyway. It's just, that's a little thing, and maybe it won't be a big deal. Technically, the oranges do match in places. It just doesn't match where it needs to right here, and it throws it off for me. But that aside, this figure is gorgeous. This is why I'm so hard, and I bring up things like Hasbro talking about paint so much. Look at the paint on this guy. Okay, this is a $100 figure, but it's got more paint on it than 3 or 4 waves of Marvel Legends. So figure that one out. And it's clean. Look at that. Is it absolutely perfect? No, nothing's going to be that's coming out of a production factory in quantities. It's not going to be perfect. But even just the white line at the top of the nose, or the eyes, or the black around the mouth, or the dots, or the tiger's eye, like, it's such a crock that these people are saying we can't put paint on figures because it costs too much. It costs too much for you to make more profits. That's what it is. It's perfectly possible and still clearly profitable. It's just the amount of profits. But if they put more paint, they'd sell more and that would make up for it. Anyway, that's a separate topic. But look at the paint, look at the sculpt. It's beautiful. The shading on the white to the orange looks really, really nice. The black lines are so crisp and clean. I love it. I love it. There is some like dirtiness, muddiness to the paint in some places, and I think it's just extra shading. But it comes off a little iffy in some spots. You see how it's darker, almost brown here. And it's not perfect everywhere, of course. I do think it is just the shading because we have it going down the back and it looks fine. So, you know, it's fine. This part definitely has like that dirty look and it's not just shading. So there are some flaws, like no doubt there are flaws in the figure. But when the rest of the figure looks incredible, I'm way more willing to overlook flaws. That's just how that is. Same thing with right here. Like this piece is all skunky and this piece isn't. So it's not perfect. There's definitely flaws in the figure, but it looks really good otherwise. The musculature in the arm looks really nice. Wish the shoulder was a little bit bigger, but being a tiger, I guess that makes sense. It gives him more of that tigery build, more of a narrower, leaner body. The chest is not super broad, but it is very well developed. I love that look. They did a really good job with that. Very nice musculature. The clothing, or the attire, let's call it, very, very nicely detailed throughout. Even right here, we have 2 little transparent things to look like jade. A little green, I guess, but looks nice. We have the rusted or patinaed copper and something else, whatever that metal is, whatever. It looks good. There's just so much detail, sculpt and paint wise. It's so well done. Everything that should be textured is textured. There's a wash throughout. Everything looks so nice. The only other real complaint I have is that they didn't color his paw pads. And you sculpted them, and there is paint there anyway. I would have thrown some pink paint on there. But hey, what the heck. Very, very nice looking figure. Again, it's not absolutely perfect, but boy is it good looking. And if you put this on the shelf, and of course this isn't a fair comparison because this is 100, this is 27, but would you rather have 4 of this or 1 of this? I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it. For me personally, it's 1 of this. Even if I loved Darwin as my favorite character ever. Like, at some point we have to wake up to what is doable and what is acceptable by these companies. This figure's freaking gorgeous. The sculpt is great. Paints are definitely good enough. Aesthetic rating, 9.5 out of 10. The muddiness and dirtiness of some spots definitely throws it off, but it looks really good. Okay, now, for accessories, we already talked about the cloak, so we'll set that aside. He does have his big hat, which is good enough. It sits over his ears, which I kind of wish wasn't the case, but it's fine. It still looks really good, and it looks good on him, so that's good enough with me. I'm okay with that. You do get an alternate head. He comes with the open mouth snarly face on him in the package, then you get more of a stern one. So that's pretty good. Both look really nice. For hands, he comes with the wide open hands on him in the package. You get 2 fist hands, 2 style pose hands, and then 2 grippy hands with vertical hinges. Wonderful. Love that. He comes with the bare feet on him in the package. bare as in uncovered, not as in the animal. And then you also get the booted, covered, whatever, words don't matter, do they? The covered feet. Also, if you want to do that, I don't personally like those. I like the showing of the feet for the animal guy, so that's whatever, but you do get them if you like them. For actual accessories, he gets a gourd, which actually comes on him in the package, but that hangs off the back of his belt. He gets a little pouch, which I don't know what you're supposed to do with, unless you're supposed to tie it to this rope that it comes with, and then wrap it around him, but I don't know that for sure. I don't know if that's what the rope is for. I didn't see it anywhere in any of the photos or anything, but you do get those things. You get his big, long pipe. That's pretty cool. You get 3 kunai. That's pretty cool. I don't know if they would be called kunai in this case, but you get those. Those are very nice. They sit in his belt well. And then you get his big-ass weapons case, which looks awesome on its own. It has, like, actual functional handles on the sides. On the back, there's a peg that helps it to peg into his back, so he can actually carry his weapon case on his back if you want him to. But inside the weapon case is actually felt lined or velvety, fake, whatever, flocked stuff, I don't know what the word is, that holds his 2 weapons, which are very nicely detailed, very nicely done. If you look at the detailing on there, you'll be like, wow, details in paint are possible? And it's very good, so love that. And then lastly, I think I've covered everything else. Lastly, he comes with a comic book, which is fairly sizable and very well made for being a free pack-in. Free is questionable, but you know what I mean. It comes with the figure. So for $100, you sure are getting a bunch of stuff that's well made. What more could you ask for? I mean, yeah, it'd be nice if it was cheaper, but I think this is perfectly reasonable. Accessory-wise, 9 out of 10. Like, yeah, it could have a swoosh effect for a sword or something. But, like, you could add more always, but it's still pretty damn good. Pretty awesome. Okay, so, for articulation, it's worth noting there is a little insert in the packaging that says heat the figure with a hairdryer or warm water first. That way you don't break your joints. They could be stuck. Fair enough. I think everybody knows that who's buying high-end, $100 non-traditional IP type figures, but I'm glad that they put that in there. I didn't really run into anything other than one spot that really needed the heat, and we'll talk about that as we go. Okay, here we go. Articulation for the head. It's a double ball peg at the top. Limited range with the collar on. I'm calling this a collar. So we're going to pop that off just so you can see and be aware that that will, of course, get in the way of articulation. The neck itself is on a double ball peg. Pretty limited range on there other than for leaning forward, but it's there and it does help some. Alright, so the head does move around really nicely. So when you have the cloak on him, other than where the cape part is, the collar part, you can move his head around really well. It's still made out of plastic, so you're going to have things get in the way, but the joints do work very nicely. The hair, as unnecessary as this is, and I mean that in a good way, the hair is on a ball peg. It does move around. Doesn't do much, but it does move, which is like what I've been saying forever for Hasbro. You have to connect the piece anyway. Make it rotate, and they did. I mean, it technically is a ball peg, I think. It's okay, it's a straight peg, but it does rotate. It just wiggles some. So, like, if you want the wind to be blowing a little bit up here and not down here, whatever, you can do it. And it, like, has to be there anyway, so it might as well be functional, and they did that, so kudos to them. For the shoulders, it's basically a McFarlane/Storm design where you have the big ball peg and then the cap, so it just moves all the way around. Don't get a ton of range out of it, so it's way closer to McFarlane toys, but it is there, so you can shift the shoulders up if you want so that the trap comes closer to the top of the deltoid, or you can bring it down and give them that kind of leaner, stretched out look. It's up to you. Definitely helps a little bit in posing, but you do get your full rotation there, raising the arm up. Better than horizontal. That is good by me. Bicep swivel is fine. By the way, everything's a nice matte to metallics to satin finish. Like, it's purposeful, so that's a very good thing. Forgot to mention that. Double jointed elbows. Not the best range, and that is including this right here. So that's going to get in the way some, but not a whole lot. You can technically remove these and rotate them. They are made to fit on the arm in this position. The bracelets are a separate piece, so that's pretty cool. But this part here, at the top of the hand, is all part of the same like leather sleeve, leather gauntlet for him. And it is sculpted to fit the arm in this orientation. If you heat it up, you can rotate it. So if you want to rotate the hand without this piece getting in the way, you can do that. But you're really going to want to heat it up first to get it to flex. Okay, now for the hands, they do all have the swivel and the hinge. That's the one thing that I needed to heat up. The hands are very tight on their hinges, which is A little bit unusual, but doesn't really matter. I guess it's fine. So you do want to heat those up. You want to heat them up for swapping and for actually manipulating that hinge. I don't know if you're going to have to do it every time, but I definitely had to do it the first time for the hands. Rotation's fine, but the hinge is hard, and then getting it to swap out, okay? All right, on to the torso. Don't know if it's a single or a double. It's pretty stiff in there, but you do get a diaphragm joint. He leans back only that far, which isn't a ton on that diaphragm. And then leaning forward, again, not a ton, but it is there. Side to side is pretty limited. I tried heating it up. I didn't get any more range out of it, so I don't know if mine's stuck or if that's just where it is. You do get rotation at the top, and then it feels like there's just a single ball peg down here at the bottom of the waist also, but because of all of this, you can't really get in there too much. So his torso's pretty limited. He's got a lot going on, especially with the cloak, which I would advise you use because it looks so cool. He's not going to pose the most, even though the joints are technically there. They definitely leaned into the aesthetic and accessories, kind of like NECA, but the joints are there, and you can definitely do at least adjustment posing or really spend some time and get him to pose really well. By the way, you don't really need this. If you're looking from the side, it's going to look a little bit weird, but even then, not so bad. So if you're like me and don't love the way this turned out, this is not bad at all, and you get a whole lot more range. And once you pose him, if you only look from certain angles, he looks just fine. So cool that they included this. Wish it was a softer piece and better painted, but it's not absolutely necessary. Okay, on to the articulation from the waist down. There's a lot going on here. It is fairly flexible, but some spots are thicker. The brown parts are pretty thick. The red parts are very soft. Very, very flexible material. This is the accessory I was telling you about. It's flexible, but it's not that flexible. So let's see. It just has ball socket hips. Let's see what kind of range we can get. Bringing the leg forward, definitely enough. Is it perfectly horizontal? No, he's leaning back a little bit, but that's gonna be plenty of range for most poses. And then, oh, he's got big butt cheeks. The way they did his cheeks is something you need to be aware of. So right now he's untucked. You want to tuck that leg under the cheek. There we go. So he's got a bit of a diaper in there, and bringing the leg back, you do get a little bit of range going back, but not too much. And going out to the side, yeah, you're not really going to get too much. Like, that's not bad, but these are really going to get in the way just a little bit too much for that. Thigh swivel. I'm not getting anything out of it. I mean, it should rotate more than that. I'm thinking it's just tight. It's kind of hard to heat in there, so you might be able to get a little bit more, but I'm not getting it right now. For the knees, I can show you the back so you have an idea of how it is. Just a really, really big double jointed knee. There's no rotation in either part, so be aware of that. And you do see the tiger parts. So I think they did that intentionally. I think they meant for his pants to just stop there, and then he has these kind of boot cuff thingies, and then you do actually get the boots if you want to use them that just go on underneath. So you're definitely going to get the tiger parts here and here. I'm not in love with that design. I think I would have preferred just to have his pants go all the way down to the top of these things and then worry about the boots and stuff, but this is the way it is. These parts are separate add-on parts, so you can technically remove them just like these. Technically, it's sculpted underneath and painted, but it's a little scuffed up and not really meant for that, but you can do it if you want to get rid of these in the gauntlets, you can do it. And rotate them to adjust if they're not lined up properly. But for the knees, I can't get better than 90. It doesn't seem like it wants to go. I don't know if it will. I can't get the knee, the upper part, to move. This top joint in here, that would bring the kneecap down. I can't get it to move, so I don't know what's up with that, but you get about 90 without it, and that's okay. It's loosely ratcheted, so that's fine. For this part, I wish it was a little bit of a tighter joint, but it's not bad. You get that much range there. And then for the actual foot, it goes all the way flat and really far forward, and you get a solid ankle rocker out of it. So I am happy with that. And then lastly, we have the tail, which is just connected by a kind of loose ball peg at the top, but it is a bendy tail. Not really meant to do much, but hey, you can do it if you want to, and it bends nicely, and the paint's not chipping or anything, so I'll take it. All right, so that was a lengthy review, but I think well worth it. I'm gonna say his articulation gets a 7. There's some joints in there that are nice, but a lot of the joints don't do that much, and he's not actually that functional, which is reasonable, but it is still limited. Okay, so all right, so that's the articulation. Let's do a final verdict on this guy. Not a perfect figure, but a wonderful one, and I think they should be very happy. I don't think that this company has made anything prior to this FuRay Planet, these animals like the wolf in the jacket and the shark guy and that kind of stuff. And I think there's a bunny samurai guy. Anyway, I think it's their first run. This, what was it? It's FuRay Planet, but then also I think it's like Maestro Union Maestro Union. I think they're new. So, bravo. Good showing. Good showing for your first batch of figures. Very, very nicely done. Definitely recommend it if these guys tickle your fancy. Again, not perfect. You'll have issues, but I think those issues are easy to ignore when the rest of the figure is as good as these are. I'm going to give this guy a final rating of 9 out of 10. I would prefer to not have the paint problems. The dirtiness, I can't justify that. Everything else, limited articulation, loose joint stuff like that, the usual action figure type stuff, that's fine, that's whatever. Nothing's going to be perfect, and they're new, and for the price, it's fine. But the dirtiness, I think they can clean that up, no pun intended, pretty easily. But still, a great figure, happy to own it, happy to show it to you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. But there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you probably should. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.